Whereas I, Greg Abbott, Governor of Texas, issued a disaster proclamation on March 13, 2020, certifying under Section 418.014 of the Texas Government Code that the novel coronavirus, COVID-19, poses an imminent threat of disaster for all counties in the state of Texas, and whereas on April 12, 2020, I issued a proclamation renewing the disaster declaration for all counties in Texas, and whereas the Commissioner of the Texas Department of State Health Services, Dr. John Hellerstedt, has determined that COVID-19 represents a public health disaster within the meaning of Chapter 81 of the Texas Health and Safety Code, and renewed that determination on April 17, 2020, and whereas I have issued executive orders and suspensions of Texas laws in response to COVID-19 aimed at protecting the health and safety of Texans and ensuring an effective response to this disaster, and whereas a shortage of hospital capacity or personal protective equipment would hinder efforts to cope with the COVID-19 disaster, and whereas hospital capacity and personal protective equipment were being depleted by ongoing surgeries and procedures, and whereas various hospital licensing requirements would stand in the way of implementing increased occupancy in the event of surge needs for hospital capacity due to COVID-19, and whereas I therefore issued Executive Order GA09 on March 22, 2020, and then superseded it with Executive Order GA15 on April 17, 2020, in an effort to avoid a shortage of hospital capacity or personal protective equipment, and whereas the governor is responsible for meeting the dangers to the state and people presented by disasters under Section 418.011 of the Texas Government Code, and the legislature has given the governor broad authority to fulfill that responsibility, and whereas under Section 418.012, the governor may issue executive orders having the force and effect of law, and whereas under Section 418.016a, the governor may suspend the provisions of any regulatory statute prescribing the procedures for conduct of state business or the orders or rules of a state agency if strict compliance with the provisions, orders, or rules would in any way prevent, hinder, or delay necessary action in coping with a disaster, and whereas under Section 418.173, Failure to comply with any executive order issued during the COVID-19 disaster is an offense punishable by a fine not to exceed $1,000, confinement in jail for a term not to exceed 180 days, or both fine and confinement. Now, therefore, I, Greg Abbott, Governor of Texas, by virtue of the power and authority vested in me by the Constitution and laws of the state of Texas, do hereby order the following on a statewide basis beginning at 12:01 a.m. on May 1st, 2020. All licensed healthcare professionals shall be limited in their practice by and must comply with any emergency rules promulgated by their respective licensing agencies dictating minimum standards for safe practice during the COVID-19 disaster. Every hospital licensed under Chapter 241 of the Texas Health and Safety Code shall reserve at least 15% of its hospital capacity for treatment of COVID-19 patients, accounting for the range of clinical severity of COVID-19 patients, as determined by the Texas Health and Human Services Commission. I hereby continue the suspension of the following provisions to the extent necessary to implement increased occupancy in the event of surge needs for hospital capacity due to COVID-19. 25 TAC Section 133.162 D4A Roman numeral 3 Roman numeral 1. 25 TAC Section 133.163 F1A Roman numeral 1 Roman numeral 2 through 3. 25 TAC Section 133.163 F1B Roman numeral 1 Roman numeral 3 through 4. 25 TAC Section 133.163 M1B Roman numeral 2. 25 TAC Section 133.163 T1B Roman numeral 3 through 4. 25 TAC Section 133.163 T1C. 25 TAC Section 133.163 T5 B through C, and any other pertinent regulations or statutes upon written approval of the Office of the Governor. This executive order will supersede Executive Order GA-15 as of 12:01 a.m. on May 1st, 2020, but will not supersede Executive Orders GA-10, GA-11, GA-12, GA-13, GA-17, or GA-18. This executive order shall remain in effect and in full force until modified, amended, rescinded, or superseded by the Governor. Given under my hand, this is the 27th day of April 2020. Governor Greg Abbott.